What up traders, what up investors? Ken here from the Dyslexic Investor, and we're going to be looking at a large percentage of moves coming in today, a lot to do within the bank section, of course the cohort of all the banks and so forth. Again, they're going to be the first ones really reporting next week on earnings, so I kind of wanted to dive in on this because on our last night live stream we did last night on Thursday, we had a lot of people come up asking about banks, JP Chase, Bank of America, and just wanted to kind of sum things up. So looking at Bank of America, so the 5 and 8 have crossed through the 21 and kind of been trading down. We really need to see this continue to, if you want this to go higher, if you're going to be a bull on this, you need to see the ticks, which is currently right now around 12-ish, 12 p.m.-ish nearly, Eastern Standard Time, kind of breaking through the 8 EMA. Again, this is going to be around the 23 to 34 level. We're slightly above that. We want to continue this to go higher, potentially to get above that 23.91. Not sure if it's going to happen today, but we need to see this happening into next week if you want to be more of a bull on this. If you're a bear on the overall banks, you're just kind of betting that we just kind of fail up here and that the 5 and 8 can start, EMA continue still grinding lower into earnings, and then kind of a coin flip with earnings again, seeing on where the market moves from there. Again, this is basically kind of comes across most of the banks. Again, the charts look fairly the same. Citi is kind of not as drastic down as Bank of America and the other ones we're looking at, but we start seeing some potential resistance here or support around the 50 level here or $49 level for Citi here. Again, the 5 and 8 are still below the 21, which is not the world's greatest sign. But again, earnings is coming up. That's a coin flip, and they're coming out on the 14th, which is, I believe, is Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday, and they usually do in the AM. So yeah, before market, so it's going to be fairly early. So you have to get all your trades into Monday. So Monday into Tuesday, we're going to know so much more on what the overall economy is looking like, how is the banking section looking like, how are mortgages looking like, all these kind of things. That being said, this looks pretty strong today. Again, a bank stock being up 3% nearly. Potentially, again, getting above that 21, really showing some potential resistance here around the downside to the 49.50 level, trying to break above that 51.28 level for some potential higher prices. Volume oscillator RSI has been flat. The TTM squeeze is kind of just showing that there could be a potential large movement. Again, that large movement is really going to come down to the overall earnings play. So we did that, Bank of America. Let's go do JP. So this is kind of looks a lot like Bank of America as well, trading well below kind of the 21, really riding down the 5 and 8 exponential moving average, kind of slightly building a base here for the last 2 or 3 days. Again, earnings as well on the 14th. So again, a lot of pressure on these. Really want to see this again above 95 to kind of break that parabolic SART break to the bottom. Then we can do Wells Fargo here, coming in here with again looking a lot like the same pattern. The 5 and 8 just been continuing grinding higher, getting a little bump today, up again 3%. Nothing to really write home about, but looking for trying to get above that $26 level again with earnings as well on the 14th. So a lot of people are going to be really changing their positions. Again, banks always kind of kick off the overall section. So let's go ahead and jump into a couple things that I saw that are quite not alarming, but so we do the XLF. That's going to be the sector spider ETF that tracks the bank sections, and this basically gives you the overall the buffet of all the different bank stocks all in one little group here. So instead of just trying to pick one winner, you're just basically betting on the overall cohort. So the one trade that we came across was a pretty enormous trade that happened around 10:30 today. So about 90 minutes ago. 25,000 calls were purchased and then sold. So they bought the 23 and a half and then the 25, and they sold the 25 call that's expiring next week. Again, this is a direct earnings play. Again, this is a potential, this is a credit spread, or is it a overall debit spread? So if we go ahead and I can slide over Tastyworks, what I use for my trading options, you can kind of see the trade here. So they're buying again the 23.5 here call, and they're selling this 25 call here to kind of collect a little bit, make that the debit a little bit less. So it brings down the debit to about like 33 cents. And again, that's still well over $825,000 trade. Again, if max profit hits, that's really a $3 million win, risking again that $825-ish thousand there. So we can kind of go look here and kind of look at the analysis tab on what we could be seeing here. Again, looking for that potential move into the next week. Again, this is a weekly option, so this is time decay is literally deflating out of this, and it's literally losing a pretty high theta every single day. It's losing pretty high theta every single hour, honestly. But this is going to be continue losing value and the premium that it has. But the only thing slightly keeping it inflated and the air is not really just popping out is the earnings that is coming out on Tuesday. So once again, the overall bet here is that these hedge funds or traders are doing is looking for potential a pop within the bank section. So we can again slide back over. There is a lot of options activity going on here. There are again also potentially some selling of puts here. Again, that could be also a very bullish play here, selling the potentially. Again, this just means they hit the bid or not the ask. So looking at the 25,000 other contracts sold at a delta of 12 is pretty unlikely to get down to that level. But again, anything can happen within the markets. So again, we're just looking for the overall price potentially to get above that 21 come next week. Again, this is a very small percentage move of trade, but the bank section is such a large cohort within the overall economy, and then just a huge component in the S&P 500 that this could really just make the markets move, and of course kind of alleviate some stresses potentially if how different economies, how business owners are doing, how the mortgages are doing, and things like that. Kind of give a better read on the overall pulse of the economy. Really looking again at that 21 to get around 23.34 to break above that. RSI and volume oscillators kind of just flat. Momentum is trying to build higher here, but just needs to see some more volume coming in here to kind of push this up higher. And again, we can go look on a weekly side. Nothing too really write home about. Again, we really need to break above the 21 here, which is really, in fact, of trying to get above the $24 limit here. Again, this is a very short-term bet. I'm not risking much at all. I'm going to be potentially playing it a little bit smaller size. I'm not going to go 25,000 contracts, but definitely going to be maybe would sell some puts on the other side to kind of be a little bit more careful and a little more hesitant than I normally do, especially with the bank section, because you can't trust the banks, right? Another bank that kind of came out was Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs is not considered a traditional bank, because the only reason they have somewhat a traditional banking section now because they have the Apple Card is basically their partner within the commercial business, instead of just more of their private equities or their IPOs, investment banking and trading firms and departments within Goldman Sachs is a really large component of their overall business. Let's see here. We can go do a quick fib here. I want to do this, actually kind of highlight some things. So again, Goldman Sachs is not as beaten up as like the Wells or the Bank of Americas or even the JP Morgans we just looked at. Potentially seeing, again, this is reporting earnings later in the week, again on Wednesday, once the larger banks kind of come out. Really showing a lot of support here around the 195 level, potentially try to see a breakout above the 207 to potentially consider going higher. That being said, be mindful, again, anything can happen in the market. I want to go back through and kind of give you an overall explanation on basically what we want to see, really just to see this continue momentum going higher, trying to break that 21 on multiple of these charts. So Bank of America, got Wells, LFC, there we go. Wells Fargo, really need to see that again breaking above that 25, potentially 26. We do JP Morgan. Again, really need to break above that 95 there. And to the downside, it's going to be continuously going down. You can kind of see where I have an alert at. That'll be $88 for JP Morgan. And then we can just do Citi as well. Again, kind of a very tight pattern here. This one's a little bit more neater than the other patterns or the other stocks that we just looked at, with Citi being a little more consolidating here, and the moving averages getting really close into each other, because you really see the 5 and 8 exponential moving average are substantially closer to the 21 than the previous stocks we just looked at, which is a potential for a larger rubber band movement. But you also do see that the parabolic SAR is much further off from this. So the downside could be steeper, but the upside can also be greater again. With the overall market move with a lot of these guys, so they're saying the 17th is $4, call it $4. So $4 we're currently up, be around 55. That's be kind of in this previous high that we see up here, looking at these levels here. So we can kind of just draw some alerts going forth here. Gonna kind of draw the alerts to the downside as well. So hopefully this was somewhat educational. You learned something from this. I hope that if you got something from this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Definitely check out our Discord. That's, again, we always have some trading ideas going forth. There's always some comments going on in there. Live market stuff, talking about potential movers and things like that. That's free to join. That's in the description down below. We also have a Patreon page if you want to directly support the channel, and of course, if you're interested in trading options or stocks, we have an affiliate link with Tastyworks down in the description as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Ken from the Dyslexic Investor, and I'll catch you